right, come on. How did this come about? Who wants to lead off? James, you go first.
I'm point man. I'm closest. Okay. We toured with each other in '93. We were supporting Suede in France and throughout Europe. I think it was France, Germany, Sweden, Holland.
It was quite a long tour. It was about 5-6 weeks, wasn't it?
It was a tour that nearly broke us all. Wasn't it, I think?
Yes.
And I think we definitely had a kinship back then. We saw ourselves as outsiders. We didn't see ourselves as part of any kind of movement. We saw ourselves as the kind of like slightly scrappy underdog, scrappy glamorous underdogs. I think we'd call ourselves. Perhaps.
I think so.
We'll go for that for now.
We'll go for that.
And we shared some kind of kinship, and of course, Richie and Nick had a beautiful kind of bone structure and slightly androgynous nature. So did Brett, and
They did. Yeah.
Still got it. Stop it. Stop fishing. Stop getting your net out. He's not even fishing. He's trawling, is what he's doing.
Brett has got that kind of 70s handsomeness about him. There's something about him.
It's mostly annoying.
You're too kind.
Mostly annoying. Yeah. The lady loves milk tray, definitely.
Yeah. Lean into that mic a bit more if you don't mind,
yes,
Brett.
Okay.
I haven't got my headphones on, but I suspect it's not quite where we want it to be.
Yeah, we've known each other for a long time, and we've always really enjoyed sort of touring together. We did a tour of the States last year, which was really lovely. Actually, we actually had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we're not. I don't think either of us are kind of like super friendly with other bands, but for some reason we feel a bit almost like the outcasts that kind of hang out together, kind of thing, like the kids that don't get picked at football, sort of thing, and kind of like just go off and read in the corner. We're like that,
We rub along very comfortably, don't we?
Yeah, and we got a mutual respect, which is nice. So.
I think a joint headline tour. I mean, this is not the first time it's happened, and hopefully it won't be the last. I think it's the way forward, and I think for 2C3, 3 1 hours. 2 intervals, people that run the bar, they're happy, bands are happy, tight and bright, big punchy 1 hours. If you were to invite a third to the party, let's nominate some potential names. Come on.
If we were to invite a third.
Come on.
God, that's a good question.
That's a tricky one.
What do you fancy? Come on.
I think what's good about the Manics and Suede, about how the dynamic works, is that I don't think we never felt part of the Britpop thing. So obviously other contemporaries from the 90s would be more Britpop sort of thing. So I don't know. I mean, I think we always felt separate from that whole
we felt
world,
co-opted into it, even though it was good to be along for the ride.
It was lots of fun and everything. But
I think any kind of entrance into this club is closed. I think no other bands welcome.
Really interesting. It's funny because you say you didn't feel part of the Britpop thing, but clearly you were.
There's a paradox there.
Tell us about that, because that is a cognitive dissonance.
Yes, it's a strange one, isn't it? I know. I think sort of Suede in lots of ways started it, and then sort of didn't, and then sort of felt rejected by it, and it rejected us, and it was a kind of a weird dynamic kind of thing.
And it's simple maths as well. I think we'd had quite a lot of albums out before Britpop happened, haven't we, kind of thing?
Yeah.
A lot of our benchmark songs had already been out for like 4 or 5 years before Britpop happened, kind of thing. But it was still a good time. It was still we were happy to be co-opted in some kind of sense.
No, of course it was a great time. It was our 60s, and the longer it is away, or the further it is away, the more you look back on it. And people, who work on the show weren't born in 1996. They literally weren't born. So Tilly and Felix were not born. They weren't even a twinkle. I didn't even know if their mum and dad had been born, let alone met. And they look back on the 90s now and they go, what was it like? Yeah. And you go, it was actually fantastic.
I had that in Cardiff on the experience of, obviously, Cardiff, quite a big university city now. And I was out one night, I think I'd been to the rugby, and a kid came running up to me. And he was obviously at university, and he was about 21. He pointed at me, he went, "You're from the 90s, aren't you?"
No, you're from the Manic Street Preachers. You're from the 90s.
And it made me feel quite authentic, to be honest.
That's hilarious, isn't it? We had a text last week about this, about if Back to the Future's made today, it would be about 1994 or something, wasn't it? It's like, that's how frightening and wonderful it all is at the same time. So when you said you had a good time in the US last year, what is it like, at your age, at this point in your career, onto what does that mean? We had a great time. What is it like now touring?
Number one, it means that the gigs were great. That's right. Always got to be the central point.
Got it.
And the gigs were great because the bands were great, and because I think one of the key things about this is that we share. Obviously, there's kind of rabid Manics fans and there's rabid Suede fans, but there's a kind of whole group of people that I think really there's a kind of a cross section where they like both bands, kind of thing. So it kind of makes for an interesting evening, and obviously some people will like one band more than the other or whatever, but we both get out there and play, and there's a sort of sense of friendly competition, which is great as well, you know.
Yeah, it does push you on a bit, because you know some nights they headlined, some nights we headlined, and I'd be at the side of the stage, and you know, I'm not just saying it because he's here, but watching Brett he's quite feral and rabid as a front man. You know, he really goes for it, and it makes you realise that actually being a proper front man is being a musician in itself. And I'd watch him some nights because I've got a guitar on, and and he's not, and he's just like Nick said the other day. It's like watching a live kind of rock and roll yoga session with him. He uses his body, kind of thing.
It's a wonderful thing to behold. It's beautiful.
It is. Yeah,
he's the beautiful one.
He is the beautiful one, and kind of. Sometimes I was at the side of the stage thinking, Jesus, I'm going to have to up it tonight.
Cheese and biscuits.
Cheese and biscuits. Jesus, cheese and biscuits.
I think it's always like that, though. It's like, you know, I watch the Manics every night and, you know, listen to those great songs, and sometimes, you know, a song would just go off. You know, I remember listening to If You Tolerate This, it was in LA, and just sounded brilliant, and the audience was so into it and everything. And you just think, okay, then it's time to up your game, kind of thing. It's that nice, sort of friendly competition kind of thing.
It's so always good, isn't it? Yeah. It's a race to the top as opposed to a race to the bottom.
It's kind of positive, you know.
It's cool, man. Yeah. And you're so different. I mean, that's why it works. You know, I think, because in many ways, James, you are the anti-front man, aren't you? Is it fair?
How do I take this statement lying down?
But that's exactly. You know, I was listening to a bit of Thich Nhat Hanh yesterday, you know, who talks about monastics and lay people. You know, you are the monastic front man.
Am I?
Yeah, you are, because it's all about the practice. It's about the songs. It's about standing there. You know, you don't necessarily need the audience to like you. You don't mind if they like you. You love the fact that they love your songs. Yours is more performative. Of course, Brett, I'm sorry, I'm talking to Brett.
No,
Brett's is more performative. That's it. I'm sorry. You know, you both know that, don't you?
I think kind of like I always approached just playing guitar and singing on stage and changing pedals and stuff, and trying to do my one-legged spin, which is my signature move. Kind of like, I always approach it in a kind of sporting kind of way. So it's like it was all about coordination. Can I pass off my left hand or my right hand? Yeah. Blah blah. And it was always a sporting angle. That's the way I approach it.
Paul Heaton's the same. Paul Heaton gets out there, does the song, says thank you very much, and gets on to the next song. You know, where you dive into the whole.
Yeah, it's just a different approach, isn't it? It's just sort of, you know, I don't really know. It's never been a kind of conscious decision for me. It's just the way I am when I'm up on stage. It's probably deep fear, to be honest. It's probably fear of humiliation or something like that.
It's either deep fear or deep fearlessness.
It's like I've got to do something. Do you know what I mean? No, it's I feel sort of there's an energy that I kind of tap into when I'm on stage. That I don't know.
It is quite vicious.
Yeah, I like that. It's showing a different side to the songs, and it's a different kind of persona, I think, which I like.
Liberation.
Yeah, I kind of enjoy it more and more as I get older, bizarrely enough. You'd think it'd be the other way around, but I kind of feel more comfortable on stage than I did in the 90s, I think. You know? It's
very punk. For us to see Brett working, it's very punk, isn't it? I think it's very punk.
Yes, it is, yeah. And also, just like sometimes, some of the nights I was thinking, has he injured himself tonight? Are we calling off the next gig?
Really?
You know. But yeah, Suede are a loud band on stage. You know, Rich's guitar is just like it's loud, man. I was watching their sound check, and it was the first sound check of the American tour. You're all just going, can you turn me up? Can you turn me up? Can you turn me up? I was like, guys, you're just getting really loud. There's no more up. It's like, by the time they kind of did their first song, it was like a 747 taking off. It was like, good grief, man.
The real problem is when we do little shows, when you do like those little promo-y shows. We did this tiny little place in Glasgow about last year, and it's like this 400 capacity place. And the guitar amps are turned up to what they're turned up to when we're playing big venues.
Yeah.
And I just come off stage with my ears ringing. It's just,
But you're so laid back. Can you lean in again? Because you keep leaning back.
I keep
you're so
bashing the microphone.
You are the opposite of what you're like on stage.
I know, I'm terrible, aren't I?
No, it's
like I've
great.
never done this before.
But it's so cool.
I'm going to start swinging the microphone around in a minute.
But you're buzzing off each other as well,
jumping up and down
aren't
on
you?
your table.
Yeah, kind of definitely.
You're
because
buzzing off each other in this chat, man.
Well, it's good because I was kind of, some nights in America, I was asking them to play a few songs that I wanted to hear, kind of thing. And that's nice because I was obsessed. I was kind of a bit obsessed with kind of like, songs like Heroin, which like, it was an amazing song, which I loved when I was young. And I was asking them to play a few songs on tour, and some nights they would play it. And that was a nice feeling. It felt like a personal jukebox. It was good.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Have you learned anything from each other?
Have we learned anything from each other? I've learned a lot about hotels from Nicky Wire.
Go on.
He's kind of like, he's obsessed with hotels. He chose all the hotels on the American tour.
That's cool.
And they were all pretty good, actually. And the one that we
handy.
chose, which was in Brooklyn, was a dump. So he's, Nicky Wire always
So
chooses
he's now in charge of
hotels.
logistics.
So if you want to know good hotels, ask Nicky.
He should start his own travel agency.
Yeah, he should
travel,
do.
without question.
So that's what I've learned.
Oh my goodness! Have you learned anything from these lot?
Yeah, I did. Actually, I think I learned about the kind of transference of energy between them. That sounds very pretentious, I know. But I would watch kind of like kind of Richard and Matt as a rhythm section some nights, and they were just so into each other. And then I would just see Richard playing guitar, and he seemed like he was so contained, but he's putting out so much energy in the guitar. And he was doing that trick of not looking at his fretboard much, so he looked like he knew what he was doing. Which I was saying, I've got to stop looking at my fretboard.
Yeah.
And then Brett just going mad and nearly knocking himself out with his microphone one night. I was just like, wow, kind of like, that's a band. They're like a military unit. It really was.
Does the old mic thing ever go horribly wrong?
It hasn't. I once hit Richard on the head. In fact, it was when he just joined the band, and we were in. He'd only been in the band for a few months, just after Bernard left, and I was sort of swinging the mic around, and I think we were in Milan or something like that, and suddenly I heard this clunk, and the guitar stopped, and I looked over, and there's Richard lying on the floor. I'd hit him right. He had this big egg-shaped lump on his head.
Ouch.
So, yeah, he didn't sue me. Luckily,
It's funny, isn't it? Because
he's never been the same since.
Walter, one of our 5-year-old twins, he got the old egg on the forehead at the weekend, and I thought, that doesn't happen to grown-ups. And I thought, is it because we don't get hit on the head as much, or is it because kids have this inflammation protection thing, this whatever your body does to itself? Because he got this huge, we took a photograph, it was huge, in profile, it was frightening. He looked like a little elephant man, and I'm not saying that, I don't mean to be disrespectful or distasteful, that's what he looked like. And then, by last night, the blood had drained from the egg into both the eyes, so you got 2 black eyes, because that's why that happens.
Right,
but you can confirm that grown-ups still can get an egg on the head if hit by the right microphone at the right time.
Yeah.
Or maybe the wrong microphone at the wrong time.
Yeah, well, Richard was quite young at the time, so maybe he was in the in-between state.
It's
but
funny,
yes,
though, isn't it?
Things have gone wrong.
You're talking about the fretboard and not looking at the fretboard.
Yeah.
We're as good as we need to be sometimes, and as good as we want to be at other times. Of course, violinists and celloists and violists, they don't have a fretboard.
No, they don't.
Don't they? Because
it's
there is
fretless.
there is no thing.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it?
So that just demands 100% confidence.
Of course it
in
does.
what you're doing. You're not allowed to be punk if you're violin or cello.
That's why they spend sort of like 7 years training in conservatories to play those instruments.
Yeah, neuroscience
we're
lessons.
rock musicians are cheats with their frets.
Yeah,
No,
pretty good.
I wouldn't say that.
So, how do you
Different
decide
skill.
who goes on first and who finishes first, depending? Because we have the venues, you've already made the decisions for the tour. Tell us about. Is there any ology behind that, or is that just?
Some kind of vague algorithm.
Yeah.
But at my age, a vague algorithm is all I could deal with. But I think there are some obvious choices. Like Cardiff Castle, we headline.
Yeah.
Then the London gig, kind of Suede headline.
Right.
Then after that, like I said, somebody else has kind of figured it out, I think.
Yeah, we just let our manager sort of kind of bat it to and fro. To be honest with you, kind of going on first and going on second didn't seem to make a huge amount of difference on the American tour, actually.
No.
And it might be different with this one because some of it's outdoors and there might be daylight kind of coming into the whole equation. But some of the times that we went on first in America, I can't remember exactly where was it, Washington and stuff like that, they ended up being great gigs, so it didn't seem to matter too much. So it's not like a big fight, really.
No, I didn't think it was for a second.
Yeah.
I just thought, is there ideology behind it?
Yeah.
And there's a bit, but not much, which is fantastic. Gigsandtours.com. I'm not finishing, just want to recap. Friday, 28th of June to Llangollen. This is for Suede and the Manics on tour together. Tuesday, the 2nd of July, Dublin Trinity College. Friday, 5th of July, Cardiff Castle. Wednesday, Edinburgh Castle. That's 10th of July. 12th of July, Friday, Manchester Castlefield Bowl. Saturday, the 13th of July, Leeds Millennium Square. Thursday, the 18th of July, London Alexandra Palace Park. Does touring together and doing the same nights together, does that afford you potentially bigger venues, guaranteed? Do you think? Does that help?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah.
So because there's a whole load of people that will come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that does work.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant. I think it's so exciting. And they do say, don't they, like, whether it's you two or the Beatles or whatever, the Manics or Suede or any bands in between and past, present and still to come future, that what you have over solo artists is, if you're having a tough time, then you got your mates around you, and that can go either way. Of course it can sometimes, but you're not flying solo, as it were.
Yeah.
It's times 1,000 when you're gigging together.
Yeah.
Because it's just more fun, isn't it? I would imagine.
Do you mean if the gig's not a good one, we can blame the other band?
That's not what I mean. Is that what you mean?
Oh, you just found a crack in the relationship there, Chris.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that one before.
But
until now.
But also, I mean, we are where we are in life, aren't we? I suppose we're either, again, before, in the middle of, or through Sniper's Alley from, all the hell stuff, all the madness, all the psych.
Yeah.
We're getting towards the light at the end of the tunnel, the third act of the hero's journey, or whatever you want to call it, and you're more at peace with yourselves, I would imagine. Well, I know you are, both of you, I can tell, and I've also read various things and watched various things. Is this the celebration that rock and roll was never supposed to have without being too sort of saccharine about it?
We were talking about, growing up in an age when there was weekly music press in the 90s, and it was vicious, you would get judged on a weekly basis, and if you put a record out that the Enemy sounds or Melly Maker didn't like, they'd let you know about it. And we were talking about now where that arena isn't so spiky. And I came to the conclusion that at this point in life, when you're closer to the end rather than the beginning, perhaps is the way I'll put it, it's more important to keep friends rather than make enemies, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's a good way of just thinking. I've lived through that 90s arena of just where everything was really, really combative. Yeah. And now I just want to save the experience a bit more.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't think either of us would do this if we were just going through the motions. It feels like both bands are really have still got something to say and still making great records. This doesn't feel like a kind of like a retro thing for me. It's just a different way to present our music and to a different audience and stuff like that, really.
I think the fact that you're doing it together is so unretro. It's so of the moment. Maybe it's because I'm of an age myself, but I can't wait. I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, and I think there's an interesting dynamic between the two bands. Like I say, if we were doing a tour with, sort of, say, someone like Pulp or something like that, that would immediately be a Britpop tour, right? And I wouldn't kind of want to do that because it feels too, no disrespect or anything like that. It's just that this feels like it's a strange
it's edgy. It's got
combination
an edge to it.
Of bands that sort of seems to work somehow. It kind of takes it somewhere else, but takes it somewhere that feels right.
Yeah, it's rough around the edges, which is exactly that's where you came from, and that's where you want to be still.
Yeah, like I said, there is a kind of like an underdog glamour to what we did. There's something. There was a slight outsider element to what we did when we started as bands, and I still think we've got that narrative in our new records. And when we just met up this morning, we both started asking each other about how the new stuff is getting on. So, it isn't completely retro. We're both concentrating on new records.
No, I love it. I love it. So when you go on first, when it's your turn to go on first, Brett and James, do you take on the mindset of a support act? And when it's your turn to finish, to go second to headline, do you take on the mindset of a headline?
I think there were some nights in America like that for us because there was definitely a bit more of a frisson of excitement about Suede playing in America because you hadn't played there for such a long time, had you?
Yeah, we haven't played there for 30 years.
So
probably,
wow.
Yeah.
30 years?
25 years, yeah.
What?
I can't believe I said frisson. That's not my kind of
I
word.
like frisson.
I
think you suit frisson. Frisson suits you, James.
Thank you. It's nice lettuce, apparently. And in LA, I could see it was a real rabid element of like Suede fans at the front.
And for you, there was a soupçon.
A smidgen. And I could see in LA there were people that were properly waiting for them to come on, properly waiting. I thought, tonight we've got to try and just like, show them that Suede are not the only band in the world, because in LA it was very apparent there were so many fans there waiting for them. So like that night, that was one night which stood out where it felt like, that we were the support band, definitely.
What do you think about it, Brad?
Well, I think it was always really interesting, that whole dynamic of kind of trying to, because it was quite obvious who the Manic fans were, because they'd be the kind of girls down the front in their kind of Manic's kind of costumes and stuff. They were kind of the Manic's fans, and I quite liked that challenge of sort of like of not converting them, because that sounds like
winning them over.
You're winning them over. Do you know what I mean? And
meeting them where they live as opposed to where you live.
And I thought that's always the challenge of a support band, or a band that goes on first, or a band that plays to someone else's audience. So yeah, I think it's an interesting dynamic. Yeah.
So yesterday we had Peter Crouch on, and we asked him about the Beckham documentary. I can't get you to one without asking you: have you heard the new Rolling Stones album?
No.
Hackney Diamonds.
I heard the single, and I heard the single, and I liked it, and I've heard good things about it. That's the blandest thing.
Yeah, I've not heard Hackney Diamonds. I should have done. Have you heard it, Brett?
I just heard the single briefly on the radio the other day. Yeah, it sounded like the Rolling Stones.
Which is what you want, I would imagine.
I want to hear it. I do. So
right.
I'm up for it.
So you are joint headline. I'm going to say joint headlining. What's the official phrase? Is that right? Joint headlining.
Co-headline.
Okay. You have clearly supported Suede before.
Yeah.
Other supports. So best support experience you've had as a support act, and the best support act you've ever had as a headline act. We've only got a minute, by the way.
Okay. Well, the best experience was supporting Suede around Europe. That was a great experience.
Cool.
The worst, I can give you the worst support experience.
We'll take the worst, yeah.
Supporting the Black Crows, kind of in the early 90s. Yeah, that was bad.
Okay, well, we'll get to why.
That was just a mismatch.
Such an uplifting half hour. But thank you for your for your
I'll
candour.
ask you about that
positive
afterwards.
Brett, come on. Have you supported?
Have we supported? Yeah, everyone supports people. I tell you, when we were really first started, we supported Ricky Gervais's band. So there you go. They were called Son of Bleeper.
Wow.
So there you go. I don't think there's any photos of that, but I'm sure they'd be hilarious.
Okay.
So there's a little one for you.
Best support you. I suppose you've got to say Manic.
Yeah, exactly.
It was all going so well.
Yeah. I remember I remember when we toured in the 90s, kind of before Catatonia had taken off. They did a tour with us before they took off, and that was amazing. It was obvious they were going to go on, and Road Rage was going to be massive, etc. Yeah. And it was the same. I think Catatonia stood out definitely.
Cool. All right. Well, good luck. Fill your boots. It's going to be great. Can't wait. I wish it was tomorrow. Literally wish it was tomorrow.
I wouldn't be ready tomorrow.
I know you wouldn't do, but I would. Hopefully still be around next year. Gigsandtours.com for the Manic Street Preachers and Suede 2024. So we got 7 dates. Could there be added dates?
Maybe.
Are there any secret venues on hold? Let's hope so.
I don't know. Maybe.
And bring on Europe, maybe?
Well, we're going to Asia. We are.
We're going to Asia.
We get there under our belts, and then we'll be ready.
It's not
Thanks
long
for
now,
coming
is
in.
it?
Yep.
Both of you.